Okay, so I'm here with John Zimmer, who I interviewed last June 2016, in terms of your escape and away from sort of the 9 to 5 to going independent. And John, I'd love for you to remind us a little bit about your original transition story, I guess, when we spoke last a year and a half ago.
Sure, it's great to be back, Anna. When we spoke, I had left about a year previously. So in 2015, I had left the United Nations system. I'm a lawyer by training. I worked in a big law firm in Canada for many years doing corporate commercial law and also environmental law. And in 1998, I had a great opportunity to go to Geneva, Switzerland, where I'm speaking from right now, because there was a great opportunity at the United Nations. I took it. I loved it. I enjoyed it. I learned a lot. From the UN, I went to another organization, and then I ended up in 2009 at the World Health Organization, which was fascinating, great experience. But after about 5.5 years, I thought, you know what? I've spent enough time doing this. It's time to get out and do something else. And so I branched off to become a full-time speaker, professional speaker. I now train people how to give good speeches. I work with companies. I work with individuals. I work with organizations. I give speeches at different events myself. I also facilitate different events as an MC and do that kind of thing. So that's a brief summary of where I was and where I ended up.
Mm-hmm. And what has changed in the last year and a half, if anything?
Oh man, a year and a half. It feels so much longer. I mean, when you start on your own, I mean, the learning curve is just like that. It's very, very steep. I've had a lot of work. I've had a lot of amazing experiences, spoken all over, since we talked, all over Europe. I had speaking engagement in Canada, one in the US, and perhaps the neatest thing that I did was I got to moderate the first day of the World Congress of the International Volleyball Federation in Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Oh wow!
which was very exciting, and it was fun to do. And that's one of the cool things about what I do now as a speaker. There are no 2 weeks that are the same. You meet different people, you meet different companies, you get to know them, you get involved, and then the next week it could be something completely different. So I've worked with people in the pharmaceutical industry, I've worked with them in the fashion industry, in the sports industry, you name it. I've worked with pretty much every industry that I can think of except tobacco. I've drawn the line at tobacco.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. I actually recently worked with Philip Morris, and initially I had the same feeling, but when I delved into them, they actually have a vision now to have a smoke-free future. So they're campaigning, interestingly enough, towards a vision of these now that I've learned, non-combustible cigarettes, the vapes, and so on. So I thought actually that sort of shifted my moral beliefs there. But I understand the choice there. But yeah.
It's a personal choice, and that's an interesting thing. When you're a consultant, when you're independent, you get to make these choices.
Yes, yeah.
Nobody says you have to work or you don't have to work. I have friends who work at tobacco companies. I have no problem with them doing that. It's just everybody makes their own decisions, and when you're on your own, as you know, that's one of the cool things. You get to make these decisions yourself.
So I think you've already answered my question there a little bit, but you've mentioned there both a choice and also sort of the variety of your every day, every week now. Are they the best things about your lifestyle now, or what else are you enjoying in particular at the moment?
I really like it's really interesting, and this is something that probably I would suspect a lot of people wouldn't do and maybe even shouldn't do. But given where I was in my career, when I left the UN system, I realized that I had not had a break, any time off really, since from before I went to university. Because from university I went to law school to articling to work in the law firm, straight to the UN. I never took a gap year. I never took a month off or to do any of that. And so these first 2.5 years as an independent, what I've really valued has been the moments of downtime where I've actually been able to just kind of go to the gym and exercise, or go for a long walk, or do a little bit of writing, or just reading, just to really kind of decompress. And it surprised me in a way just how much I needed to do that. A lot of people, when they start off, of course, when you're an entrepreneur, an independent, you've got to hustle, hustle, hustle. And I do that. And I've been fortunate, touch wood, that I've been able to replace the income I had at the UN with income from work that I do on my own now. But I also really benefited, I think, from just having a bit of du recul, as they say in French, to back up a little bit. But now that's, I'm about 2.5 years into it. Now I feel that, 2018, the plan is to kind of really ramp things up. I've got the blog, which is doing very well. I have a website in development. I want to finish a book. I published as well, interesting project with a very good friend of mine. We published a book in German. He's German. He was hired by a German publishing company to do a book on public speaking. So we wrote it together in English, and it's translated into German. So it's out in the German bookstores and on Amazon.de. And we're really looking forward to them, putting it out in English as well. The other thing I like about what I do is you've got the time to be a bit creative. And one of the things I'm most proud of, and I can't remember whether we talked about this in our previous interview, was the board game, this public speaking board game that my friend Florian Mück and I we created. And it's a game that's just designed to help people improve their public speaking. And what we've done is, in the last year and a bit, we turned it into an app. It's now available on the App Store, Google Play. And the cool thing is that with an app, you can always update it. So it's available in 6 languages right now in different themes. And that's, it's really gratifying to see people playing it and getting feedback saying, hey, this is not only fun, but it's actually helped me. And so when you're on your own, what I would encourage people to do is, yes, you've got to hustle, you've got to get the work, and you've got to do the work, and you've got to do a good job. But you've also got the flexibility to do things that might not seem obvious. They're not necessarily right in front of you. They're more on the periphery. But when you look there, you can actually find some interesting opportunities for yourself.
Well, it sounds like it, with volleyball in Buenos Aires and apps and books in German and all sorts. I imagine you couldn't really have expected those things a few years ago.
No, it's a real a buffet, if you will, of different things, and it's been fun. The other thing that I would say, as I think about it now that I've learned, is the importance of having a good network. People that you can bounce ideas off of, people that you can run things by, people with whom you can do work. As a speaker, it's kind of a solitary life in the sense that, I go work with clients intensely for 2-3 days, and then, oftentimes I don't see them again. I mean, I see the client, but it's different people. And what's nice is I've got a very good network of other speakers throughout Europe. We do projects together. We collaborate. If one of us can't do a job, we will ship it off to the other. We exchange things like that. And it's great. It's nice to have that. It's like a little family in a way. And what I've learned is that when you are open, to actually helping others, to promote others, which I try to do, and to share work, which I try to do, the more you do that, the more you send out, it actually much more comes back to you. It's just, you call it karma, call it whatever you want, but it's an important lesson.
No, absolutely agree. I remember most of my first contracts when I left came from contacts from my previous job. And then since then, as you said, people recommend you, even you have a conversation, you just help someone, you don't really think anything is going to come of it, and then you never know who they'll tell, and vice versa. So it's a really lovely community, and so important as well when you're having trouble maybe and you're feeling a bit down or struggling a bit. It's so important to have those people around you as well. No,
indeed. And the reality is that at the end of the day, there is plenty of work out there for everybody. There is work out there, and so if you approach it, I think with an attitude of abundance as opposed to an attitude of scarcity, I think it's better, and you just feel better about yourself and about everything, really. Yeah,
100%. Just to go back on something, because I thought that was really interesting when you said carving out time was sort of the recul and pulling back a little bit. Then it sounded like you also had the hustle, that you're going into a bit more hustle maybe in 2018. Do you see now, after a few years out of, I guess, the rat race or whatever, do you see that kind of cyclical, I can't say the word, What's the word? Cyclical is what I'm trying to say. Thank you. That's the one. This shape. Do you see sort of the hustle and calm, or are you able to sort of carve out that time for yourself all the time? How do you see that balance?
No, I mean, to a certain extent, you are always going to be a victim of the schedule. And I've had weeks where it's been really, really full on. And weeks and months where it's been really intense. The month I went to Buenos Aires, I also had a speaking engagement in Spain and another one in Finland. So I felt like I was living out of the airport. Now, I loved it. It was a super exciting month, but I wouldn't want to have a month like that all the time. If you break it down, like within a month, sometimes you'll find that there are weeks where you have, 3-4 days of work and there's other things to do in admin and it's pretty much go, go, go. But then there'll be weeks, excuse me, there'll be weeks where you have maybe 1 day of work or 2 days of work with space in between, and then you've got a bit more time. So I think it's planning, if you will, to, we're so used to scheduling in our calendars, work related stuff or a lunch or an event or whatever. But, just scheduling, no, for this 2-hour period, I'm going to read, or this 2-hour period, I'm going to go to the gym or whatever, just to make sure that you carve out that time for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And you've already shared quite a few extra tips, I think, but do you have anything else that you wish you had known when you first made the transition, or some new advice that's popped into your mind now thanks to your extra years of experience?
Well, there's probably all kinds of things I wish there were. No, nothing really comes to mind. Ask me if we do this again in another year or so. Ask me again. I may have some ideas. I think I've pretty much covered. I think the main things that have jumped out at me. I would say that when you're out on your own, it's exciting and it's energizing and the adrenaline gets flowing. But do take the time to take care of yourself. For me, exercise and sleep are very important. I get about 6 to 7 hours a night, and that's usually pretty good for me, but I really try and get a good 6-7 hours of sleep, because if you're not getting enough sleep, eventually it's going to catch up with you. And it's the same way with finding time again just to kind of get away from the screen, put down the phone, and as when you're on your own, you got to be checking in with the email and this and that, but I still find time to just, put it away. I try not to look at it first thing in the morning. I try and do some creative work or think or do a little bit of meditation or just something just to set me up for the day.
Yeah, no, that's excellent advice and so important. I think we forget how important that is. And again, we've sort of escaped one kind of working, partly for some of us because we've reached burnout or stress, or we just don't want to put that much pressure on ourselves. And then we put as much or more pressure on ourselves when we're working independently. And in the long run, it's just never going to work, is it? So actually, I found even just taking sort of 10 minutes to meditate or go for a walk or something will make me so much more productive. So even from sort of a pure efficiency standpoint, actually taking that time out is really effective.
It is effective. You're absolutely right. And people who tell me, they're too busy to go to the gym or too busy to do these things, I say, it's like saying you're too busy driving to stop for gas. Eventually, it's going to catch up with you. The car's going to stall.
Yes.
Eventually, it's going to catch up with you. So you do take the time to look after yourself.
And as I say, you can stop watching a few of those Netflix series and carve out like 10 minutes to exercise. Even just 10 minutes is enough. So.
Exactly.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much, John. It was lovely to catch up with you and great to hear how well you're doing. I'm really so keen to sort of follow people's stories beyond that initial maybe euphoria in the first year or so and really see how people progress through the long haul perspective. So definitely happy to talk to you again in a couple of years and see how the business has evolved.
Sounds good. It's great to be speaking with you, Anna, and I really appreciate the work that you're doing to help others get inspired to go take that leap. And I think you've done a great job at that. So thank you.
Oh, thanks so much, John. Thanks.